where you're going to find a list of all our member clubs as well as, uh, many things about our telescopes and what exactly we do, including presentations that are coming up. You can also check us out on our socials. So we got the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a Discord channel for those of you gaming inclined. As always, we are a nonprofit, so all your support does help us go keep our lights on and keep offering the free public programs that we do. With that, our first program for this online winter season is What's Up in the November Sky with Lonny Buinis. Lonny has been giving talks at UACNJ since it opened. He is the only member of the International Association of Astronomical Artists to specialize in virtual reality planets, some of which appear in his ebook, which he shamelessly promotes at every opportunity. Tonight we'll know uh, what's up going forward in this month, and with that, here here's Lonny.
Thank you very much, Kim. Kim is among the many volunteers who give of their free time to make it possible to offer programs like these for us, the general public. Yes, I am not a professional astronomer. I'm one of you guys, and I just love everything there is about space and making space understandable and popular for all of us out there. So let's find out what's up there in November. We do this every month because the sky keeps changing. And if you look carefully at this opening screen, you'll see several famous objects we'll talk about later. A gas cloud in the upper right in the shape of the North American continent, the farthest thing in the universe that you can see with the naked eye, and a very bright planet all surround a huge square in the sky that helps us find these things. It goes by a very complex name. We'll see if we can figure that out later. So keep that in mind. Watch for this big giant square. When you come to visit, we will show you this little reminder about things that we do live at the observatory April through October when it's not so cold up at Jenny Jump. So we ask you to visit our website. We ask you to use our porta potty. There's a lot of things that will remind you when you come to visit. I'm going to start off with a little history. 1957, on November 3rd, the Soviet Union, which no longer exists, launched an animal into space, Laika. It was not, Sputnik 2 was not providing life support, and so poor Laika perished from lack of oxygen. There was no plan to retrieve her, but there is a really interesting science fiction story, a ghost story by Arthur C. Clarke, the author of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which was not only a best-selling novel, but a movie. And his story is about Laika. So try looking that up. It's fascinating. November 3rd. I like to get my events for the month from something easy to remember because I'm old. It's easy to forget for me, but it's easy for me to remember Go-Astronomy. Go-Astronomy. Go there, check out their astronomy events, click on the event calendar on the left, and you'll come up with the entire year. I've just cut out the current month. We've got 2 meteor showers, 2 moons, a planet, and an eclipse of the moon entering Earth's shadow. Lots to talk about. Also, finally, the scheduled launch of Artemis 1, NASA's new mission to the moon. So first, let's start with some lunar phases. Early in the month, late in the month. Every month, we get 2 phases that are critical to observing the sky, right? If you want to see a nice, clear sky, you don't want the moon in the way. So the very best time is when the moon is new, or that is close to the, oops, sorry about that. I have a new mouse, and you touch a certain button and things go back and forward. New moon, the 23rd of this month, is when the moon is close to the sun in the sky. Does that mean that the two are close together? Really? In space? No. The moon is 400 times closer to us than the sun, but it's also 400 times smaller. So the two figures work to make the sun and moon about the same size in the sky, the same angle. So when we talk about size in the sky, astronomers talk about angles. And the moon is about a half a degree in angle, just like the sun. 360 all the way around the sky, a half degree is very small, but we see it. Worst time to see faint objects in the sky is, you guessed it, the 8th this month, full moon. Forget about looking for nebulas or nebulae, plural, or star clusters, or faint things like comets. It's useless. The moon gets in the way. If you know where to look for planets, that's okay, because you can see some planets even in the daytime. So the 8th and the 23rd, two important dates. I get these calendars from moongiant.com. Moongiant. Lots of good sites. The moon has a name every month. Here's a list of everything from Wikipedia. In November, we have the deer mating or fur pelts moon, old traditional names. Now, names from the Farmer's Almanac are a bit iffy. Is that the scientific term? Iffy? But some of these are traditional, like the beaver moon, turkey moon. You can see where some of these names came from. Turkey moon, I wonder what date is coming where turkey is important. So take your pick, call it what you will. Turkey moon. Count them, two meteor showers early in the month and mid-month, the Taurids and the Leonids. Now, the Taurids are a minor shower. You might see 5 bright ones per hour if, and only if, you're in a dark site like the one at United Astronomy Clubs of New Jersey. So I urge you to come visit if you can, right? It's one of the darkest sites in the state because it's in the state forest, and we don't want to build a lot of artificial lights in a state forest. Although the peak is November 4th into the 5th, best time is midnight, right? Midnight or after, but you don't have to stay up that late. November 4th, stay up and look for the peak as we enter the track of Comet Encke, the track of the comet leaving debris in its orbit around the sun. The Earth passes through the track of an old comet, and that's why we have meteor showers. Even though the shower is generally over the course of about a month or so. And there are the dates. This is a short period comet, goes around the sun a little more than 3 years, comes back to the same spot every 3 1/3 years approximately. So we go through this track every year. 28 kilometers a second sounds fast at 65,000 miles an hour, but actually these are slow meteors. So they're going to give some nice slow streaks if you can see them at all. You'll have a much better chance of doing that with the very fast 72 kilometer per second Leonids from, you guessed it, the constellation Leo. See how that works? Leo, Leonids, Taurus, Taurids, named for the origin point that we see the meteors stream out in all directions in the sky. Why do they seem to come from a point? If we're passing through a parallel track, why does everything seem to come from a point in the sky? Well, it's the same as those annoying, very narrow lane dividers painted on the highway on the Garden State Parkway. I swear that those things are, it's a pet peeve of mine. They're closer than most highways. I find it really annoying. I feel like somebody's driving right on top of me. But that has nothing to do with the radiant point of meteor showers, which is where they seem to come from, because parallel tracks will meet in the distance. It's an optical illusion. Look in the head of Leo for the origin of the meteors, but if you want to see them, just look over the entire sky and they'll spread out. Leo is not a current prominent constellation. It's better seen in the early spring. This is from debris from Comet Tempel-Tuttle with a much longer period around the sun, 33.2 years. For reference, the Earth goes around the sun how long? 1 year, right. Now you might see 10 an hour if you're in a dark site, which means where I live in the suburbs, I might see one bright meteor over the course of an hour if I'm lucky at all, or any meteors. Now, what do you need to see meteor showers? What kind of equipment? Well, 3 things, 3 complex, expensive pieces of equipment. I'm going to go through them carefully right now. Here they are. You could spend upwards of thousands of dollars if you want to do it right, but don't panic, it's not necessary. Meteor showers are most easily seen with some basic equipment. This, the naked eye. Remember that term? You've all got them, most of us. Use them. The naked eye, number one. Number two, a comfortable chair. And number three, this time of the year, you might want to dress warmly. What you want to do is lie back, use the wide angle of your vision to look over the entire sky. The meteors will be streaming from the direction of Leo, which is below the horizon, towards the west. So meteors will streak out everywhere. Fun. Taurids, November 4th, Leonids, November 17th. There'll be a test later, don't worry. We have a planet at opposition, which means on the same side of the sun as the Earth. So closest to Earth, even though the planet Uranus is far away. We'll take a look at that. But the big event this month is a total lunar eclipse as opposed to solar. Solar is Sol, the sun. Lunar is Luna, the moon. And this is an eclipse that happens when the moon enters the shadow of the Earth, spread out into space. We have here on the East Coast, we are this colored band, which means that some of the total phase will be visible. This thing happens when the moon is low in the sky, and so we're going to miss part of it. But don't fret. Here are some times for you. Maximum eclipse, 5, 6 in the morning, good time to watch, and it'll be setting shortly after that. So don't miss it. Now, the penumbral phase is kind of faint. The Earth's shadow has a couple of basic parts. The deeper shadow, umbra, the fainter shadow around it, penumbra. So when the moon is in the penumbra, you'll hardly notice any difference in brightness. So you want to see the total part of the eclipse, beginning about 4 a.m. Check it out. You might see something like this by the time the moon sets. Total lunar eclipse, November 8th. It's just a few days from now. Don't miss it. So we can simulate that using computer programs like Stellarium. And that's what I'm going to do right now. Stellarium has finally reached version 1.0. For years, it was 0 point stuff. Starting at 0.7, I picked it up at 0.14. It was 0.22 until just this year. Finally, 1.0. When are they going to get to 2? In about 20 years? It took them 22 years to go from 0 point to 1. So now we're looking north at United Astronomy Clubs of New Jersey site. If you visit, you'll see the main building open to the public towards the west. How do we know it's west? Because we go outside, we look for the giant letter W, right? Right. I'm only an amateur astronomer. I'm allowed to make jokes. Professional astronomers, very serious. They don't smile, they don't laugh, they don't make jokes, but we can. What you want to do is get yourself oriented by first looking in the north for the pointer stars of the Big Dipper, which is in the trees. How nice. We can cheat a little bit, draw pictures. We can also go backwards in time from 8:14 and 27 seconds at night. We can play with time in Stellarium. Like this. And now at 1844, arithmeticians in the audience, minus 12. What's 18 minus 12? Yep, about 6:45 at night. The sky is still a little bit light, but if you look carefully for these lines, you'll see lines connected. No, you won't. You'll see a dipper-shaped group of stars known as the Big Dipper. Follow the two pointer stars up about 5 times their distance apart. And you come to the North Star. By clicking on objects in Stellarium, you can identify what they are. This is Polaris, also known to astronomers as Alpha Ursa Minor, Ursa Bear, Minor Small. The Small Bear, or the Little Dipper. And in Stellarium, you can do all kinds of neat things like bring up pictures from different cultures, dozens of them. This is Greek legends, mostly standard pictures, but you're not going to see pictures in the real sky. You're not going to have names, and you're not going to have lines. But for the rest of my presentation, I'm going to cheat a little bit and leave the lines on. And this is the way you might see it on the kind of star map that you can buy. Shameless promotion, warning, shameless promotion, wait. We do sell planispheres that look like a round star chart at the UACNJ Museum and Gift Shop. Yep, we do have things you can look at when you come visit. Right now I'm going to zoom in the way you might see this in the real sky. Constellations in the real sky have a big angle. Sometimes you have to turn your head to see an entire constellation. In the fall, the three brave warriors following the Great Bear wounded it. They caused it, causing the bear to bleed. When the bear is low in the sky and fall, the blood falls on the trees according to the Iroquois legend and turns them red. That's why we have autumn or fall. The Big Dipper is low in the sky. You can tell time with the northern constellations that we see in New Jersey, the five: Big Dipper, Little Dipper, Draco, Dragon, Cepheus the king, Cassiopeia the queen. These constellations never rise or set. They just spin around the North Star, which the Big Dipper points to approximately. There's the actual position of the North Pole, about there. So it's a little bit off, but that star helps us find it. Do we have a South Star in the Southern Hemisphere? Do people in Australia, Africa, South America, do they have a South Star? Nope. So we can lord it over them. No, I wouldn't do that. Let's be humble. Let's be thankful, because in a few thousand years, we may not have a North Star. A few thousand years ago, that Thuban, Alpha Draconis, was our North Star. The Egyptian pyramids, to this day, looking along an edge, point north. That's where they pointed when the Egyptian pyramids were built. And now that's our North Star. And in about 10,000 AD, this will be our North Star, Alpha Lyrae. So let's work our way on over from north, over west, where stars are disappearing, the stars of spring, Corona, the crown, Hercules, the hero, sort of a letter H in the sky, disappearing. We're focusing on things that we can see more easily if we look straight up and high. We will see three bright stars in three separate constellations: Alpha Aquilae, Alpha Lyrae, Alpha Cygni, the brightest star in the Swan Cygnus, the brightest star in the Eagle Aquila, the brightest star in the Lyre or Harp. Uh-oh, what is that? What's that? What's that? Starlink. Anybody ever hear about these? Yep, it says right there, artificial satellite, right? And they put up a lot of these recently, and a lot more are going, tens of thousands, to provide internet access over the entire Earth and from low Earth orbit. So you might see these. They're very easily noticeable in very dark skies, like the ones at UACNJ, the Jenny Jump. I'm going to unhighlight that. You can get a lot of information by clicking on things. Right here in Cygnus the Swan, the location of the first discovered black hole, Cygnus X1, X-ray source, number one. Black holes swallow material heated up so hot it glows in X-rays. Can you see it? No. Nope. I mentioned earlier at the start of my talk that there are some beautiful nebulae or gas clouds. Let me see if I can stop it from spinning. Zoom in a little bit. This one is shaped like the North American continent. It's called the North American Nebula. Nebula, word for gas cloud. And why are these gas clouds glowing red? That's hydrogen gas glowing in its own light. Now, you won't see that with the unaided eye at all. In a telescope, you won't see the color. The human eye is not very sensitive to the weak colors in the real sky. But in stellarium, we have photographs that people took, and so we can see the North American and the Pelican nebulae, or for nebula, dark dust lanes in this nebula next to Gamma Cygni. Watch this constellation, the Swan. Over the next couple of months, it will be going lower and lower in the sky. And people notice that around the time of Christmas, the cross lies on the horizon in time to celebrate the holiday, also known as the Christmas cross. But these three bright stars in a triangle, best seen in summer and early to late fall, are known as, yep, you guessed it, the summer triangle. You see how science works, scientific terminology? Yep, you can still see it. You can still, if you're observing, since it's very high in the sky, it's coming through the least amount of Earth's atmosphere. The thick troposphere is only 5 miles thick. So the light from these stars and objects is coming through only 5 miles of thick atmosphere. So you might want to ask an astronomer when you come visit, or the neighbor who has a telescope, to show you the coat hanger. See it? Next to the arrowhead sagitta. See it now? Arrowhead. Sagitta, shot by Sagittarius, the archer. Right there. Coat hanger, not a constellation. It is very much like the Big Dipper. It's an asterism, a star picture, asterism, not an officially recognized constellation, which number the same as the number of keys on a piano. So for you piano players in the audience, you can feel superior to us while you tell your neighbors and friends who might be listening, maybe in the chat, how many constellations there are. Same as keys on a piano. There are many, many deep sky objects to find. Looking around, you can find them easily in stellarium, another nebula. I don't know the name of that one, but we have amateur astronomers at UACNJ who know a lot more about the sky than I do, and a lot more than professional astronomers. If you look below the summer triangle down low, you'll see some summer constellations disappearing in the direction marked by the letter S. So go out tonight, look for the letter S, right? No, I lie a lot. You can turn these things off and on in stellarium. There are all kinds of options to view the sky. Markings, cardinal points, off, on. But I digress. My constellation, the sign that was supposed to be the sign the sun was in when I was born in December, is this one, Capricornus. To me, it looks like, well, it's missing a star here in the, down here, often makes a triangle. I think it looks like an article of clothing to me. But you might see, I don't know, you see the sea goat? Yeah, our ancestors had a couple of things that a lot of us nowadays lack because we have an excessive dependence on our electronic devices. They had dark skies and they had imagination. And some of us still have imagination. So you want to spark your imagination, get off of your cell phone, get off of your tablet, get away from your computer, like the one I'm using now, and go out and look at nature. When you go to the park, take those earplugs out, right? Look around, watch the squirrels. Look for a satellite, radar sat. Famous science fiction writer Isaac Asimov wrote hundreds of books, numbering about 400. I forget the exact number. Incredible author, both fiction and nonfiction. He was challenged to debate a group of astrologers one day on a panel. And so naturally, being a good scientist, he looked up his astrological sign, Capricornus, realized it was an old goat, and said, I'm not going to debate a bunch of astrologers when I'm an old goat. Look for the old goat tonight, and you'll see the planet Saturn nearby. Planets, unlike the stars that they're near, if they're high enough in the sky, generally don't twinkle. That's how you can tell them apart from stars. And there's another way you can tell them apart. They move over time through the stars. Hence the name planet comes from Greek planetides, the wanderers. In a small telescope, you'll see that Saturn has moons that are visible. We have one. Saturn has something like 65. Probably got that wrong. Look it up. There are lists. There are lists of both all the moons in Wikipedia, as well as the ones that we can see in telescopes, that amateur astronomers can see. In a small telescope, you can note the rings of Saturn are now open. They go through a cycle. As Saturn moves around the sun in 29 and a half years, every 14 years or so, the rings of Saturn disappear completely because they are so thin compared to their 170,000 mile width. They're only about 30 feet thick, incredibly thin. The giant moon Titan is the most easy to find, but there are other fainter moons. In a larger telescope, you can see divisions in the rings, gaps. This is a famous one, Cassini division. How about to the Hubble Space Telescope? Yeah, you get something like that, thousands of divisions. You can speed up time and watch the moons race around the planet Saturn. You can do a lot of things in a computer program that you'd have to wait eons for in the real sky. Note the angle that a planet makes is very tiny compared to the whole sky. That's why you need a telescope to see details. We ignored another bright planet nearby, coming up. Well, let's see, right near the planet Jupiter, tonight the planets Uranus and the moon. Oh, I'm sorry, not Uranus, the planet Neptune is here. Faint, looks like a faint blue star. I once saw this in my little telescope, 60 millimeter telescope, looked like a little blue disk. No details. Has a big moon, Triton. That's how it might look in the kind of telescopes that we have at UACNG. A giant planet like Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus. The big one to look for tonight low in the sky is Jupiter. This is the largest of all planets. It's a gas giant because it's made of, you guessed it, gas. It's got 4 bright satellites that Galileo noticed 410 years ago, about 412 years ago. One of them has a reddish color. It's covered in sulfuric compounds, Io. One of them is the smallest and yet the brightest. My favorite of all moons may be a place where advanced life will be discovered in our lifetimes. Yes, I said advanced life, perhaps animal life or plant life, living at the bottom of the ocean. There's a thick ocean under the ice of Europa, covered with cracks. And NASA has plans to send a probe to it to land and maybe drill down, see if there's microorganisms. Someday we may find out if there's life inside the moons of giant planets. And that doubles or triples the number of possible places in our galaxy where we can find life. Tens of billions of places, or the trillion stars that inhabit our Milky Way. Jupiter can be found among the stars of Pisces, the fishes, where we also find the moon tonight interfering. Let's center on the moon and see what it is its phase. When the moon is not quite full, between a quarter and full, we call it gibbous. Not to be confused with gibbon. All right, you can see a little spot with the naked eye, little spot in the upper right of the moon, Mare Crisium, the Sea of Crises, is about twice the length of New Jersey. And yet we can resolve it with the unaided eye. Kind of looks like that when you look at it with the naked eye. Our ancestors could not see craters or detailed features on the moon. But in even a small telescope, you can see wonderful things, rays coming out of the crater Tycho, bright craters like Copernicus, even details and shadow near the limb, near the terminator between light and dark. Nice dark crater Plato. If you watch this crater long enough, you Astronomers have seen, and I say astronomers, I mean amateur astronomers, have seen gaseous clouds crossing slowly across the dark face of Plato. The moon is not a completely dead object. But it is annoying because over several nights, it gets in the way. Let's change the date, shall we? November 5th, 6th. The same time, the moon has jumped because it's moving around the Earth, right? It's passing through the stars. And in a couple of days, on the 7th, the moon has changed. Now it's closer to full, when it will undergo an eclipse. I wonder if Stellarium can show us the eclipse. I usually forget to do this. On the 8th, it's being eclipsed by a tree, yes. Let's turn that off so the tree is no longer in the way. Well, where is the eclipse? Let's see. Whoops, I think I bypassed it. Sorry. Let's pick a day, middle of the month, and see what the sky looks like. And I'm going to put back the land. So you see, there's a lot of fun things you can do in Stellarium. That's just a taste. Let's set the time back to a reasonable time. Oops, sorry. Lots of windows. Everybody's still awake at 8 o'clock, right? How about 9? You can pick any time you want. 9 plus 12 is 21 hours. If we look towards the east, we see the stars of winter rising, Orion the Hunter, Taurus the Bull, signs of the zodiac. But I've thrown a lot at you. I don't want to get you confused. So let's end this part of my talk with this huge square in the sky that represents the partial constellation. This is so big, you actually have to turn your head in the real sky to see the whole thing. What is this big square? What would we amateur astronomers call it? You guessed it, it's called the Great Square. Great Square represents Pegasus, flying horse, part of the legend of Perseus and Andromeda. And if you haven't read this in the library where it's been for 3,000 years, you have no excuse. It's been made into a movie twice called Clash of the Titans. We find the Princess Andromeda chained to the rocks, but she helps us find the farthest thing that you can see with the naked eye. Farthest thing in the universe, it's in the Guinness Book of World Records. Find this star, Alpha Andromedae, in Andromeda, and count 2 stars over, 2 stars up. If you live in very dark skies, you might see a little Y-shaped group of stars. I tend to see 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe 5. But amongst the spokes of the Y is something that looks the way our Milky Way galaxy would look like from outside. We inhabit a collection of 1 trillion stars. And this one is even bigger. And someday we're going to merge with it. Don't panic. The old estimate is now obsolete. It's going to be a lot longer than astronomers thought. Originally, we thought we would merge with this galaxy due to the attraction of the bodies, the 2 galaxies, by gravity in 3 billion years. Now we know the figure is 5. I can breathe a sigh of relief. 5 billion years. This galaxy has 2 visible dwarf galaxies. Now, there are many more orbiting. We just can't see them in a small telescope. These are dwarf galaxies, just like our clouds of Magellan, the Magellanic Clouds, which you can see if you go below the equator on Earth. And so this is what our Milky Way looks like from a great deal off, and the 2 Magellanic Clouds. Little dwarf galaxies that orbit ours. The dark dust lanes hide starlight behind them. Old stars glow red towards the center of the galaxy. The blue light of young stars bounces off the gas in this galaxy. Lots going on. fascinating objects. The light that you're seeing from this object left over 2.5 million years ago. Find it. You can see it with the naked eye. You'll also see the Milky Way galaxy crossing the whole sky from dark sites like Jenny Jump. So I leave you here with a constellation that we can see towards the northeast. Perseus, the hero I mentioned before. And for those of you who like a challenge, see if you can find the double star cluster in Perseus. Actually, between Perseus and Cassiopeia, the W. See if you can find or watch this star, Beta Persei, Algol, an eclipsing binary star. Two stars that happen to be lined up, seen from Earth in such a way that the light of one eclipses another every few days. Eclipsing binary, winking star, the eye of the Medusa. And just to frighten you, there they are, Perseus and the head of Medusa. Read the story, it's fascinating. See the movie. Let's conclude with some news. Some of you may have heard there's a new crater that got blasted on Mars. How do we know? Well, they found it months after the Mars quake that the impact caused. This is a pretty big block, pretty big rock boulder smashed into Mars and created a Mars quake that we detected on the surface for the first time, a surface quake. Now, Mars quakes are nothing new. The probes that have been sent to Mars can find them, like the InSight probe, covered with dust. It's running out of juice, solar power, because it can't collect much light with all that dust. So it's going to go bye-bye pretty soon, but it's still sending back information, and it detected this Mars quake, surface quake, near the equator. And the great thing about this is that this blasted out chunks of ice, which astronomers did not realize were so close to the surface at the equator. Future missions to Mars were planning to go towards the poles where the ice is just under the dust. But if the effort of digging out water ice is not that difficult near the equator, it's a lot easier to land there. This is a 150 meter, or about a 500-foot crater, and that is actual water, which we can break into hydrogen for fuel and oxygen to breathe using electrolysis. So someday when people go to Mars, they will find convenient water to help sustain life. Big news, the Artemis moon launch from NASA is finally ready to go. This is just about the biggest spaceship ever made, very powerful. Someday, maybe this will all be the purview of private enterprise like SpaceX and others. But right now, this is very exciting. We've got a place where you can watch it live, nasa.gov/NASA Live. I see you all furiously scribbling. No, nobody uses pen and ink anymore. Paper and pencil, what's that? But you're all furiously typing away, and you're not typing away in your phones. Nobody's taking notes. How are you going to remember this? nasa.gov/NASA Live. Check it out, November 14th, early in the morning. Countdown begins the 12th. The Artemis moon mission, very exciting. It's unmanned, go around the moon and back to make sure everything is working properly before we send human beings back to the moon for the first time since 1972. It was way before I was born. Actually, no, that's a lie. It was way after I was born. So I remember ancient history. I remember people going to the moon. And if you're going to tell me it never happened, hoo-ha to you. A review. 2 meteor showers, November 4 and 17, early and late in the month, if you can't remember the dates. Full moon early in the month for viewing faint objects. Best time, new moon, toward the end of the month, November 23rd. The launch of Artemis 1 of the Orion capsule to orbit the moon, November 14th. There's also other probes going to land on the moon, November 11th. And SpaceX Starship One, is it finally going to launch? It was supposed to go in August last year. Are they finally going to, I mean, this year? Are they finally going to launch? I don't know. But we'll find out. And if they don't go this month, then you'll find me talking about it in What's Up in December, of course. Got some good references for you. uwacnidge.org. Repeat after me, uwacnidge, UACNJ. It's an umbrella organization for all kinds of astronomy organizations, not only in New Jersey, but also New York, Pennsylvania, and anyone else who wants to join. Magazines are still in print online as well. Sky and Telescope and Astronomy, you can subscribe, but there's also big amounts of free stuff on those sites. And there are apps by the dozens. I mentioned Stellarium, the one I was using. You can download it from stellarium.org, run it on your device. You can run on a website without downloading stellarium-web, or you can get the free mobile app. Everything's free. Celestia is also free. That lets you fly through the solar system. You can see you can see what the eclipse of the moon looks like from the moon as the Earth eclipses the sun. Very cool. Maybe we should try that. Stellarium, I mentioned before, version 1. Celestia, version 1.6. And a place to find out about meteor showers, go-astronomy again. Check it out. You can get a lot of good information, how to observe, when to observe, where, and every shower for the whole year. If you forget everything else I've told you tonight, everything, then don't panic. This one's easy to remember. Space.com. Everything, science, search for life, space flight, things that are informal about space, things that are scientific about space, everything. And now some shameless self-promotion. I have a book that you can interact with, just like my wife's hand there in the picture. You can move a model of the planet Mercury in 3D. You can zoom in and zoom out for detail. You can click hyperlinks for short videos, like the ones at Mars at your fingertips, my brand new virtual reality model of planet Mars, for sale real cheap, but there is also a free demo version in HD. The full version is 4K, lots of detail, lots of short videos. In the paying version, there's 28 videos. They're every single landing and crash site. They're short, snappy videos for people like myself with short attention spans. And it's a lot of fun. And again, as I said before, it's cheap. Hold the planet Mars in your hands. You can find me at astronomyinmotion.com. My website has virtual reality planets you can try for free. The moon, Mars, Mercury, a star eclipse to see how we figure out how there are planets around other stars, Mars at your fingertips, and my email. And I want to thank you for being such a good audience. When you do visit uacnj.org, we have other information, Discord, Patreon, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. It's endless. We're everywhere. But if you forget all else, uwacnidge, uwacnidge.org. And when you're there, we remind you about your headlights. You can ignore that for now. Thank you. You've been a very good audience. I'm going to leave my share on for just a bit. I'm going to go back in case there are questions. I'll leave Stellarium running, and I'm going to set it to the current date and time. Thank you, Kim. I'll turn it over to Kim.
All right. Thank you, Lonnie, so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this presentation. We're going to have a bit of a Q&A session now. The first question I found was, are you waking up early for the eclipse?
Oh, me? Yeah, of course. I will definitely get up for the eclipse because it's a beautiful thing and it lasts hours. It's not like an eclipse of the sun that lasts anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes and then boom, it's gone. This one is beautiful, slow, poetic. What other words can I use? It's really something you don't want to miss.
Yeah, I myself am probably going to try. I'll set my alarms.
All right, I urge all of you, try it. You can always go back to, well, can you go back to sleep? It's on a work day, isn't it?
Right, right. Yeah, I'm, gonna try. The next question actually we have is if people in the southern hemisphere don't have a pole star, how would they polar align their telescopes?
They don't. They just wander aimlessly. They can't find anything, and they cry. No, that's I just made all of that up. No, they actually have a southern cross. It's a group of four stars that conveniently point towards where the South Pole is. And maybe I should do a show on Southern Stars sometime, or maybe we can have one of our members who's visited the Southern Hemisphere. I believe one of us has gone to, that's right, he's gone to Antarctica to do some research. So he would have seen a southern sky. So maybe we can do that. If enough of you request it, we can do a show about the southern stars.
Yeah, I know Gil has gone to Antarctica. I don't know if he's necessarily uh, paid too much attention to the constellations because he was down there doing science.
Yeah, he was busy trying to stay alive. You have to eat about twice what you normally eat in calories to stay warm down there.
That's what happens when it gets a little too cold.
Mm-hmm.
um, the next question is, we have an exact number of constellations, and that number is 88. Is there an exact number of asterisms?
Oh, that's a very good question. I will have to research that. Um, well, you can always take a group of stars that you see only in a telescope or binoculars and make something up yourself. So asterisms aren't officially recognized the way constellations are by the International Astronomical Union, the way they did in 1930 when they nailed down the 88, gave them boundaries, and set it forever. Asterisms, a lot more flexible. I know of only two, um, but I'm probably not, I probably know more than two, but I just can't think of them right now. So that's a good question for next time. I'm going to make myself a note, and in what's up in December, I'll see if I have an answer. Thank you.
Perfect. So the next question was actually one I put in, and that was rather divisive in chat. Do you think when do you think we might get teleporters like in Star Trek, so we don't have to, travel so long between things? Like, can you
Yeah,
imagine
that's a
traveling with children? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that would solve
For
that
me.
problem. Yeah, we're there 2 seconds. Or like travel in a wormhole. That would get you faster. The problem with teleportation is you have to align all of the waveforms for all of the particles in your body. Now they've done it for one photon. They've actually teleported one photon, one subatomic quanta, one particle. But to do it for the endless, I can't even count them. The trillions upon trillions, it's not even trillions, it's a countless number of particles in your body would be darn near impossible. Now, eventually it could happen at random over the course of the life of the universe, but who wants to wait that long?
Yeah.
You
I
know,
I
you know what might be a better, Kim, a better solution, instead of teleporting, a faster trip. It's going to take days to get back to the moon and days to return. But if you could accelerate in a rocket with a powerful rocket, maybe using antimatter, continuously, you could get from the moon to Earth in 2.5 hours. So maybe someday we'll have powerful rockets that accelerate at 1G the whole time that we're traveling. Accelerate 1G and then turn the ship around and decelerate at 1G halfway through. I don't know.
Yep. I enjoyed this reply to my question. Uh, there's a view that teleporters, like in Star Trek, where your molecules are broken down, is death. I believe it to be the end of my continuous experience, and the person who steps out on the other side will not be the me I am now.
Well,
I,
well, if you, I've got an answer for that. I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
yeah, I said honestly, sounds like working in retail. You go in and you never come out the same.
Yeah, yeah. If you believe in souls that are independent of the brain, then perhaps if you once you do something like break something down into its component parts, teleport it and reassemble, the question is, will the soul want to come back to that body or will it want to go to some other one? Speculative questions, both religious and physical.
Yeah, but interesting questions nonetheless, and ones that will eventually need to be thought of if technology progresses that far. All right, so we got another question here. I'm going to put out a last call for any last minute questions while we're doing this one. Uh, what do you love to view or image in November?
View or image. My favorite things, well, I am obsessed with planets. That's why I make virtual reality 3D models of planets. So to me, having both Jupiter and Saturn in the same sky this month is wonderful because you can see details on both planets, even in a small telescope, because these planets are so much bigger than the Earth, so that even that they're further away from, so far away from us, they still present good sized disks in a small telescope. So my favorite things are planets. But every once in a while, I do like to look at fainter objects, like, for instance, planetary nebula, that is the outer atmosphere of a star that blew off a shell of gas and dust. In the Lyra, there is a very faint, very small, see it right there? Ring Nebula, M57 in Messier's catalog. Famous. This is a spherical cloud that was blown off the outer atmosphere of a star, but we can see through the center part of it, which is the thinnest part. So it looks like a ring instead of a globe. And it's called the Ring Nebula. Isn't that beautiful? That's one of my favorite objects. In a small telescope, unfortunately, it doesn't look like much. It's tiny and it's generally got no color. But in long exposure photos, you can get things like this, with the remnant star still left in the middle. Poor star lost its atmosphere. See how tiny that is in angle? But you're not going to see any of this. Not going to see any of this if you don't go outside and look. I was trying to get to the eclipse. Let's see if I can jump forward to the 8th and move through time like so. The moon's going to set, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to turn off the ground. How bizarre. No ground. Yeah, and that'll also let us kill two birds with one stone. Ouch. By whoa. Yeah, I forgot that. Uh-oh, my dog's going crazy. I'm gonna have to take a quick break. Kim, I'll be right back. I gotta restrain my dog. Someone's coming in.
So, like I said, I did actually put in a last call for any last minute questions. Yeah, and you are correct that right now the best guess is that our solar system will end up looking somewhat like the Ring Nebula, Ducky. Um, I do encourage you, guys, to do check us out on our website. Again,
Sorry about that.
uacnj.org, and and that's where you can find when our next online presentation is. Uh, do we know when that is, Chris? December 1st? Yep. So our next scheduled online presentation will be December 1st with Lonnie again with What's Up in the December Sky. And you're back, Lonnie?
Yes, I am. Sorry about that. I have a dog who never barks unless people show up. Only
Yeah.
time.
Hey, at least they're a good watchdog.
Oh
No
yeah.
one's sneaking in. All right. The last question we have here is when is the next time we have an in-person event? So the next time we will likely have an in-person event is actually going to be in April. The first Saturday in April is when we open back up to the general public, and we'll have what's up in the we'll lead off it with what's up in the April sky at that point at our Jenny Jump location. Periodically, various places do have us request us to do outreach, such as various local libraries. I believe at one point we even had Liberty Center request us. So we do occasionally have outreach at various locations throughout the year. So does that answer your question? All right. Perfect. So that looks like we've gone through all the questions. I want to thank you, Lonnie, for another great presentation, and I look forward to
Thanks.
seeing you all again. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.